Rust often attacks the body of the oldest copies along the edges of the rear fenders, doors, and rear ends of the sills. Corrosion can also be found in the trunk floor. You should also carefully examine the shock absorber cups on both axles. But this is not the rule. Well-maintained Mazdas can have healthy metal. In the 323F, the condition of the glass seals is equally important. They are made of soft rubber that wears out fairly quickly. To check the tightness, you should go to a car wash. On the road, all versions behave correctly and safely. It is especially pleasant to drive the Mazda 323F. However, comfort lovers will not like the work of its suspension. The struts and stabilizer bushings, especially the rear ones, turn out to be very unstable. If they are not replaced in time, this can lead to rapid wear of other suspension elements. However, suspension strength is higher than European competitors. But there is one thing: the cost of running gear components. They are not too cheap. The rear axle is fitted with an independent 3-piece suspension known as Twin Trapezoidal Link (TTL). The market only offers a rounded rear wishbone. Fortunately, in practice it does not have to be changed. Brake pads don't last long. As a rule, they require replacement every 30,000 kilometers. At very high mileage, problems arise with the caliper guides. All gasoline engines are represented by 16-valve units with a timing belt. Sometimes they are tormented by oil leaks from under the valve covers. The cooling system also requires control. Even small losses of fluid lead to overheating. The smallest 1.3 L/75 horsepower was present in all bodies except the F version. It is reliable and economical. Larger and more dynamic 1.5 L/88 horsepower, the Z5 series, makes a less pleasant impression. Sometimes the replacement of piston rings and valve seals was necessary after only 150,000 kilometers. Alarming symptoms are increased oil consumption and blue smoke from the exhaust pipe. Similar problems bypassed 1.8 L/114 horsepower BP series, which is more common in the Mazda 323F. This is an excellent source of traction for more demanding drivers. When driving dynamically, it burns not much more than a 1.5-liter aspirated, but provides better performance. The BP series engine revs incredibly easily, as if it had no flywheel. Of course, he has it, and the clue lies in the use of very short, and therefore light, pistons. They have very little inertia, making the motor easy to lift. However, short pistons tend to increase oil consumption. Increased consumption was observed even with small runs, and in the future only increased. For a negligent owner, one day, 1.5 could use up the entire supply of oil. If this did not happen, and the engine is still alive, then most likely it already requires replacement of the crankshaft liners. This is a typical weakness of BP engines, known from the first and second generation MX-5s. While in 1.5 Z5 the valve clearance is adjusted using calibration washers, in 1.8 this task is performed by hydraulic tappets. If low-quality oil is used and it is not changed regularly, then the hydraulic lifters quickly become clogged, which leads to burnout of the valves and, consequently, to a loss of power. Only the F version was equipped with a 2-liter V6 with a return of 144 horsepower, Series K. Unfortunately, it consumes about 12 liters in the city. Servicing this engine is not cheap, and replacing the timing belt can hit the budget hard. The K-Series engine needs a lot of care and love from the owner. The 6-cylinder unit is prone to high oil consumption. Regular level checks are essential. You can fix the situation, but it's not exactly cheap. Unfortunately, this is not the only problem. There is also the occurrence of rings. This happens if the engine does not have time to warm up during short trips or immediately turns off after a fast ride. It is worth noting the hydraulic valve lifters. They can knock due to careless maintenance of the motor or failure of the valve that regulates the pressure of the oil pump. Then the pressure does not correspond to the speed. Valve health can only be determined by measuring the oil pressure. You should not rely on a low-pressure lamp, and the engine is silent to the last. The 6-cylinder engine is sensitive to spark plugs. Best of all, he perceives Japanese Denso or NGK. Although Bosch is not contraindicated, it may be difficult to start. Fortunately, distributor failures are not as common here as with pre-1994 engines. Diesels were only offered in the 323P and 323S. The weakest is aspirated with a capacity of 2.0 liters and a power of 71 horsepower. It is durable and economical. The second, a 1.7-liter 82 horsepower turbo diesel developed by Isuzu, was intended exclusively for the sedan. Cars with such an engine are easily recognized by the characteristic hole on the hood. The motor was used in many Opel models, so it is well known to mechanics, and its repair is inexpensive. It is necessary to reckon only with a low-lying generator, which is easy to fill. The exhaust system also needs to be checked. It is susceptible to corrosion. Typical problems and malfunctions. Body corrosion. Non-working parking brakes. Sometimes it just needs to be adjusted. Failure of the electric drive of the retractable antenna. The plastic gears of the mechanism wear out. Braking keys. They are incredibly long and thin. Per sealing of frameless glass doors. Steel can be tried to adjust. Very low efficiency of the headlights. In most cases, you can disassemble and clean the reflective surface. Short-lived front stabilizer struts. Wear of the crankshaft liners. 1.8 V16. High oil consumption by engines of 1.8 and 2.0 liters. Generator failure. Defective ignition cables.